Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Behike Sanakori. We got little technical difficulties here with the camera. Sorry about that. But thank you for tuning in, all you future listeners out there who are downloading the show. Everyone in Taino Radio Land. This is at Taino Fun House.
Hello, everybody. My name is Anani. I'm Sanakori's daughter. And today we're going to be talking about a lot of great stuff about Jesus, the original medicine man. And I have a lot of questions for my dad here. Hi, Bana. Bana's in the chat. So usually my dad and I will have our little daddy daughter dates where we'll have dinner together, and I'm always asking him questions about Jesus. And I've been on my own spiritual path for about 2 years now with Christianity, and I feel the most comfortable talking to my dad about Jesus because he knows so much. And I was like, you know what, we gotta film an episode on this so that you can share your wisdom and insight to the viewers out there, because I feel like it's very powerful what you do know. So let's begin with you introducing us with your educational background on the spiritual stuff that you know about Christianity.
Thank you, Anani, and for hosting this show. I know it's a very controversial topic when you mention
Yes.
Jesus
Yeah.
and indigenous peoples because as we know, as indigenous peoples of the Caribbean, 1492 was a horrible year for us. And a couple of years later, it was a time where the Roman Catholic Church was very oppressive towards our ancestors. And and unfortunately, this is why one of the reasons why we lost most of our traditional medicine ways and rituals because of this horrible scene that happened in 1492. Not all of it was destroyed, most especially the people's spirit and resolve. Those were not destroyed. And right now, I don't see any conquistadors around. Right? Hey, where you at, man? Yeah, I don't see them around anymore, but they are disguised in many ways. And right now, one disguise is um, forcing Jesus in people's lives and threatening them with hell. Either you choose this or you choose that. Now, our ancestors were very welcoming. Our ancestral Taino Caribbean indigenous tribes were very welcoming, and that's one of the reasons why the invasion was so swift. But we had our ways. We still have our ways that still work. To answer your question, back in I would say, well, let me see. I was 11 years old. I received the Bible because I was the altar boy of the year. This is right after my great grandmother had died, and she was an inspiration to me. She was an espiritista. She had tremendous knowledge of rituals and cures and all that stuff. So when she died, I was 11 years old. So immediately I went to the church. Actually, I was also wearing her mass. And then that's when I said, I want to dedicate my life to learning these ways, these spiritual ways in the church. I don't know if anyone has been in a church, especially a Catholic church or an Orthodox church. It's a lot of incense. There's a lot of ritual, even the dress code. There's a high priest, and there's and the people, right?
Yeah.
So as an 11-year old, I was like, wow, that kind of reminds me of my great grandmother, the stuff she used to do, especially with rituals. And I remember watching the priest saying the celebrating or presiding over the mass. I was just overwhelmed by the power that bread and wine can turn into the body and blood. So I just of Jesus. So I kept every mass I kept going to. I kept thinking of that, like, wow, that's tremendous power this man has, that he could turn bread and wine into this to God, here on earth. So I said to myself, you know what? Any mass I can serve to witness this bread and wine turning into God, I'm gonna go. So I would get notes, permission notes to serve every mass,
Oh wow.
even though I had school. So this is what I did from one solid year, 11 to 12 years old. So when I was 12, that's what it was. When I was 12, I won the Altar Boy of the Year. I
Wow.
literally served the mass every day.
Oh my god, you were dedicated.
Right. I served the funerals, the weddings,
Oh wow.
and the regular 8 o'clock mass.
Wow.
But this is what happened to me, which kind of blew me away historically in my lifestyle, on my life narrative. From 12 years old to 14 years old, I was like the best altar boy you can find in Brooklyn, New York, because I served every mass. Unfortunately, like many of my many altar boys in the 70s and 80s, there were a lot of priests who were inappropriate when it came to the priesthood. And many of them were good liars, they were great deceivers, and they were managed to maintain power, in the church. Many of them even became in the hierarchy in the they moved up in the world, as they say, right, in the church. So personally, I mean, this is public knowledge. I was molested by a priest for several years during that time period, from let's say 11 years, 12, 11 to 14, and that's when I said no, enough is enough, and I fought back, and years later in the 90s, I found out that many of us fought back at the same time, which is very interesting. So um, I'm happy to say that the Brooklyn Diocese did admit that there were many priests that did perform these horror stories.
Wow.
So I remember when I was, I think I was 16, 17 years old, I was going through a crisis. I didn't want to go to church anymore. That which I loved no longer was good for me. And people wonder like, oh man, what's wrong with me? And then, it's interesting. This is a time period where, technically a lot of teenagers, they experiment with drugs and sex, to somehow feel better, right?
Yeah.
But what I did was something interesting. It's something I can't explain to this day. I
Mm-hmm.
went to the very Bible I was given
Mm-hmm.
as the Altar Boy of the Year when I was 12 years old. I took it for the first time. I took it out the box, and it was given to me by this monster priest. And I said to myself for the first time, I said, what makes this man tick? You know.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first thing I said, well, what makes this man tick? Well, he's a great preacher, he was a great motivator, and he always read from the scriptures, from the Bible.
Yeah.
So I said, let me find out what kind of what kind of things this Bible produces.
Mm-hmm.
So then out of curiosity, I started in Genesis and I ended up in the last chapter of Revelation.
Revelation.
So I didn't read everything word for word, just too much, but I skipped through a lot of it. And then I said to myself, you know what? I want to dedicate myself to the church, to the Roman Catholic Church, not just as a priest, but as a I'm going to target these monsters, because I think they got it wrong, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So that's when I went to the Brooklyn Diocese of New York. I became a seminarian at the Immaculate Conception Seminary. There, I got my bachelor's in philosophy, and but it was also those years that I first started experiencing what they call anxiety disorder. And then I would get like nightmares and tremors, and especially when I was with a lot of priests. When you're in a seminary, all your professors are priests. So I remember really not really focusing too much on the what do you call it? Damn, I'm trying to think of the word. Well, basically, it was a distraction, a lot of distractions. So,
But a part of you was like,
uh
part of you was like facing your traumas at such a young age. Like you were trying to heal yourself, and like you had ambition to heal others who are going through similarity. So that's pretty huge of what you went through.
yeah, man, it was really tough. And also at a sexual level, it was very difficult because with the sexual abuse, it kind of messes you up mentally, spiritually, and all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
physically. So what happened was, I graduated and I just didn't have the stomach to go on to become a
Priest.
4 more years for theology. And it was during this point where I wrote a letter to the bishop McGavro, and I kind of apologized. Said, "Sorry, Bishop, I won't continue on to the seminary. Hope you forgive me, because a lot of these priests knew me, and the bishop knew me. They knew me since I was 11 years old, because I was used to serve the masses. So they knew me. They knew of me. So so then the bishop invited me to his office. You know, and that was like an honor, right? Go visit the
Yeah.
bishop, right? And he says, "Whatever I can do for you, Lou, I will support you." And I'm like, wow, I was overwhelmed by that. But then again, the anxiety started creeping in. I was like, no, I can't do this. I can't do this. So, I fell in love. I got into relationships. And then that calling was still in me, like, come back to the church, come back to the church. So I did. But this time, not through this Diocese of Brooklyn. I went through the Franciscans, because I always admired the Franciscans as a child as well, and the story of Saint Francis with Sisi working with the poor, that really motivated me. So I became a Franciscan, and there I lived some beautiful years. But it was during these Franciscan years that I first met the Crow Nation,
Oh wow.
the Crow indigenous people, and there I studied. Well, I shouldn't say study. I was gonna study under Father Charlie, who was a Franciscan priest with the Crow Nation, and he showed me a different perspective of priesthood. He was very kind, very gentle. He wasn't one of these priests that were like predators. So he made me feel good as an individual, as a man, and as a religious. So that was gonna be my destiny, to go back to Montana and be a pastor for the Crow Nation. But then that didn't work out, because my generalized anxiety disorder got worse. And it was during this point I had to take some medications for it. But then I couldn't study too well, you know. And then something happened to me I went to Seton Hall University, which is a very conservative seminary, and all the what do you call those things? Those flashbacks started coming back at me really, really strong. And then I had to do a project in the seminary. It was I'm trying to think of the class. I think it was systematic theology. How theology, the study of God, can relate to us at a communal level, whatever. And with the teachings of the church center. And that's when I found an interesting book called the brief history of the destruction of the Indies, by a priest named Bartolomé de las Casas, a Spaniard priest. And when I opened that, that's when I first started investing time learning about my ancestors, the Taino. And as I started reading these books, my anxiety started getting worse and worse. I started taking more medications, and finally I had this huge rash and stuff, and I couldn't get rid of. And all my brothers, at the time were like trying to help me out. Like, come on, man, you can do this, you can do this. But I just couldn't anymore. And I remember the night, 1995, and right before my finals, I took a bag and I left. You don't do that. You don't, when you're in a religious order, you just can't leave.
Yeah.
So that courted chaos.
Oh.
So in 1996 was the first year that it was my first year away from the church. But I did go back. But I went back on my own. It was, I enrolled in a seminary called Union Theological Seminary. It's a very liberal, one of the most liberal schools in the country. That means, or in the world, I should say. That means you study the tradition, right? You study the Christian tradition, but then you try to apply it to right now, or the contemporary times. How does Jesus fit in contemporary times? So in my worldview, I'm like, how does Jesus fit in the Taino way? So at the time, it did not. But I still wanted to complete my studies. I had 2 years left for my studies. So I got a master's in divinity at Union Theological Seminary. So most of my training, both in college level, 4 years of theology, philosophy, then 4 more years in theology plus 2 years. Well, it was a good 5 years I did seminary, until I got my master's of divinity. And now I had a choice. What do I do with this, right? I made a strong effort to support my Taino identity. I went into Taino Nation. There were a lot of Catholics there. They supported me, but yet I didn't want to be Catholic anymore. I just couldn't. It was morally devastating for me to do that. So what I did was I became a chaplain at a Cabrini Medical Center. I started doing my chaplain hours, my studies, and before you knew it, a priest told me, "Hey, you should be a social worker. You have those social work skills of helping people and finding solutions for them." And that was Father Andrew, and he says, "Yeah, man, let's go for it." So by it was incredible. It was like light speed.
Wow.
I got my master's in social work, so I was able to blend both the social work and the religious, theology. I managed to do that, but not as a Christian, but as a Taino. So I do want to. Oh, hello, Anna Jimenez. So I do want to state. I may sound biased at times, but today in today's show, I want to try to be as impartial as possible and share what I learned in the seminary. Okay, and and I went to a very conservative seminary. I went to a very liberal ceremony, but they had one thing in common, and that one thing in common they had was that they taught the history and they taught the scandals, but they taught the Christian faith tradition. Which sadly, when I look at YouTube, I look a lot. I'm sometimes I'm invited into churches. It breaks my heart that a lot of the pastors or the preachers, they really don't emphasize those teachings. A lot of it is it's kind of shady sometimes
Yeah.
for money or for whatever. Um, so I thought, man, that was a long answer. Sorry about that.
No, it was a good intro. Now we know a little more about you and your history. Just a little bit of me. I grew up in an Episcopal church. I would sing with the church choir, and I was maybe 8, 9 years old when I first started. So, going to mass and stuff, I kind of found it boring. I wasn't really that interested. I loved singing the music, the classical music, and singing about God and learning about God. But I would just sit in mass and be like, So I never took it serious, or I wasn't that interested until as I grew up as an adult. 2 years ago, I lost my grandfather, who was so close to me, and I would say that's when I had my awakening, as they call it, where I was more interested about like heaven, where do we go after we die. So I did a lot of self-studying on that, and I felt a very deep connection to God. And woo, the lights just went out. Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Maybe that's the Holy Ghost stepping in the room right now. But
Great spirit.
right? No, but I lost what I was saying. So that's just a little bit about me and like the spiritual path that I was on and I'm still on. And so we should dive into our first question, which you kind of spoke a little bit on. How can you be Christian and be Taino? And what advice would you give to people out there who struggle to accept both where they come from with their own cultural religion and stuff, but they might resonate with Christianity or Jesus? Like, what advice would you give?
I first learned this in 1993 when I was with the Crow Nation. Being indigenous, say it's a Crow or Taino or Kalinago, look, Navajo, whatever indigenous nation you're part of, that's an ethnicity, you know. And for a lot of those ethnicities, a lot of those peoples, they go back thousands of years. Um, for example, in the Caribbean, they're starting to figure out that it can go as far as 7,000 years, and they're still learning these new, the years keep expanding. So that ethnicity, that for me, I refer to myself as Taino, um, Caribbean indigenous. That's my ethnicity, you know. So for many of us, we have dual ethnicities. Sometimes, sometimes people say Boricua, Taino. I mean, sorry, not Boricua. Puerto Rican, or say you want to say Cuban, Dominican, and and yet you have those indigenous bloodlines. So it's an ethnicity. So with that being said, being Taino is not a religion.
Mm-hmm.
Being Navajo is not a religion. Now, a lot of those nations do have their own practices, spiritual practices, and a lot of tribes lost their traditional spiritual practices. But at the end of the day, we are part of a beautiful ethnicity that almost was destroyed in 1492, but we're still here. So our ethnicity has grown, and when the Africans, when African peoples, indigenous peoples came to the Caribbean as property, as slaves, unfortunately, they added to the ethnicity of what it means to be Taino, and also the mixing of the Spaniard blood. Um, at times I regret that in my worst days, right? I'll be like, damn it, you know. But it also changed the face of what it means to be Taino, that ethnicity. But it has survived 539 years. It has survived the ethnicity, what it is to be a Taino. It changed. It changed. And how did it change? Well, with the African influence, with the European influence, um, our Taino ethnicity kind of modified. Music was different. Music was introduced, right? Different religions were introduced, like you say, Christianity. And I don't tell anyone, hey, don't be Christian, because look what they did to us. Um, oh, that's the problem. Can you take that thing out there?
What?
Um, can you just unplug that? Oh, we got some lighting issues here.
This?
Yeah. No, hold on. Okay, guys, let me take a little time out here. Here, you want to talk to the people?
Sure. How's everybody doing today? We have a couple people here in the chat. 6 viewers. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Happy Sunday. Are there any Christians in the chat? Are there any Tainos in the chat? Who's here with us today?
Oh wow, that was yours.
Yeah, it kind of smells like
Yeah.
electricity, fire. Kiana. I'm good. I'm doing good.
You almost lost the camera there.
I know. So is this
Yeah,
good?
Hey, what's up, Kiana? Yeah, you can come closer. Yeah, don't plug it in.
Oh, okay.
We got good smokes here. We got some electricity buzz there.
Oh yeah, it smells like electricity.
So we got some good smokes there. That's all right. We just got smudged. Let me see. La Boricua, Le Borinquen says, Daka. Taino Daka. What's up? How you doing? La Boricua, Le Borinquen.
Bana.
You mean Bana?
Sorry, Bana.
So,
Forgot
did
what
I
you
answer the
said.
question?
Yes, you did.
I'm sorry, man. My bed almost got caught on fire there. So.
No, so let's move on to the next question. And this one's really gonna deep dive into like who Jesus was, because the focus today is like Jesus. So based on what you learned about in your knowledge, what's the real story on Jesus? Who was he? And what did he really look like? Because there's a lot of white conservative Christians out there who believe Jesus was like the almighty white superior, like white man, blue eyes, But I don't know, because you refer to Jesus of Nazareth, so you should talk about that.
Right. Oh yeah. So just to conclude, when I was at Crow Nation, there were many different religions on the reservation because the Crows, in their understanding of God, God is everywhere. God is in all people. So they allow different churches to come in. Now that's become very controversial now for many of the tribes.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've learned from indigenous folks
Mm-hmm.
is that, hey, you want to be Christian, go right ahead. It's one God. But I'll still keep practicing my sweat lodge, and or pipe ceremonies. But you can't tell me I gotta stop.
Mm.
And we can't tell you not to stop because hey, that's your calling.
And that's gonna cause more division by doing that.
Yeah. So an indigenous way is really not to attack, not to condemn, but to embrace.
Mm-hmm.
But if it gets difficult, negative, then you got another story there.
Right.
Oh yeah. So Jesus of Nazareth. Wow. If anybody has their laptops out right now, you can Google a person from Nazareth, a man from Nazareth, a woman from Nazareth, a family from Nazareth. Which is in Israel. Uh, you're gonna find a lot of brown people. You know, a lot of curly brown people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Um, it's very hot in Nazareth, so people there have
Or
strong,
dark.
dark, have
Yeah.
melanin.
Palestinians.
Palestinians. There you go.
Yes. Yes.
So Jesus most likely was a brown skinned male. Probably had strong curly hair. Oily hair.
Mm-hmm.
From the hot sun and so on. I don't know about you, man, but I don't know when I had hair. When I would go to Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, it always get like really tight curls,
Mm-hmm.
from the
Especially in the water.
yeah, from the humidity. So according to I mean a lot of the narratives you find about Jesus's appearance
Mm-hmm.
is taken from Europe. Um, I believe the most famous one is the one that Michelangelo drew.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually his lover that he drew.
Mm. Wow.
That's the one that the brown eye. I mean the blue eye Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, with the locks, the
Yeah.
blonde locks. That was actually Michelangelo's
Wow.
lover, which is cool, right? I guess he loved him a lot. Hey, let me make him Jesus so
Mm-hmm.
everyone can honor you. That's kind
That's a
of
real kind of love.
that's kind of fun, right? So different tribes, I mean different peoples have different interpretations of Jesus. Unfortunately, the European version is the one that dominates right now,
What?
especially in the postcards and stuff. And then when you go to these Bible, what do you call those? Those Bible stores. You
Mm.
see Jesus, the white Jesus. Now you go to a lot of African American communities. You have the black Jesus, right, with the
Yeah.
afro, which I cool. I love those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's more accurate.
you know, and then you have a lot of the indigenous Christians. They use Jesus looking like a warrior.
Mm.
Peaceful warrior. So that's a good. It's different interpretations, but Jesus was definitely from a place that was very hot, as we say in Palestine, right?
Yes. Yes.
um, and he was definitely there's a lot of debate right now. I'm not really into it right now. Maybe back in the day I would be about did Jesus actually exist, you know.
Mm.
But let's just assume he did. A lot of when I was in a seminary, I had to read a lot of historical texts. Pliny the Younger, Josephus, they all mention Jesus in their writings, and so on. And Pontius Pilate, one of the what is his official title? He was like the overseer of the military fortress in Jerusalem there, you know.
So why do people say that Jesus was born in Bethlehem?
Okay, here's the thing. The scriptures, either Hebrew scriptures or Christian scriptures, right? When you put them together, many people call the Holy Bible. You got to understand one thing. It's not a historical text, okay? You cannot take the Bible as a history book. It's a book, a collection of faith expressions, faith memories, you know? You can't really take it as historical text. Now, did Jesus, there was a story that Jesus, there was Herod Herod the Great was gonna kill the firstborn born because he was scared of losing his power, And then so then Joseph took Mary and they took and when she was pregnant, because they were going to take a census, right? So they went to Egypt,
Mm.
right, to give birth, right? So it's interesting because it's an old familiar story of refugees, right? Man, what's happening in Palestine right now, right? It's like, run for your lives.
Mm.
So that's kind of that old narrative, like run for your lives, You see it in a lot of these cultures. Was it a historical in my studies, that's not, that did not happen. The three kings that came, right?
Yeah.
That's also a great story trying to unify. This is what the early writers try to do. The early Christian writers, they try to unify Jesus to the old traditions of the old kings, the old Hebrew traditions. That's what that's all about. Um, but I know out of respect and sensitivity to many Christians out there, I apologize if I offended you, but there's a lot of stuff that I learned from the history, from the historians at the seminary.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, so you kind of dive deep into my next question, which is, should we take the Bible literal, or should we take it seriously? Like,
Wow, if you take the Bible literally, you're gonna cause a war. So I
yeah.
suggest, please, anyone's listening out there, even Christians out there, please, and I'm not Christian, please do not take it literally because you're gonna hurt some babies. There's parts in the scriptures where you hurt babies. There's parts where you have to sacrifice your son. You also have to sacrifice animals. And that's a no kind of a native tradition, right? So please don't take it seriously. Metaphorically, that's right, metaphor. Yeah, metaphor is very important. You gotta understand when Jesus died, it was a good 80 years after his death, and the Christians were getting harassed tremendously. So much so that the early Jewish Christians were like, "Hey, man, we're out of here.
Mm-hmm.
We got to protect our families." So little by little, these early writers they had to look for new followers. You know, so they went to the Greeks, they went to the Romans. They spread out to different countries, Persia and so on,
Mm-hmm.
Africa. So a lot of these stories, they're metaphors and trying to explain what their experience, what they felt when they knew about Jesus, or what their disciples said about Jesus. It touches your heart.
Yeah.
So that's what these stories are all about. It's an expression.
Mm-hmm.
And back then you could make stories up. It wasn't a crime. You know.
Mm. I think a lot of it also, the Bible teaches you a lot of things that are teaching you how to be a good person, a good human. You take good morals, and recently I've been reading the Quran, and it also teaches a lot about being a good person. And people might see it as like cruel rules, but you can't take it so literal. It's just about, it comes down to just being a good person and a good human and how to treat others with love and respect. And I think in the Bible there are different stories that teach you that, and it's a good reminder. I feel like the Bible is a tool that we just use to remind ourselves that at the end of the day. So there are a lot of people, especially in America, who do take the Bible literal and will
Hmm.
hurt people and hate on people if they don't agree with them on that. So it's kind of like really hypocritical when you think about it.
Hmm.
Um, so I wish I had a direct passage to this question, but I have a lot of friends, and even myself, we use crystals, especially indigenous community. We use crystals, we use tarot reading, we use, a lot of people connect to the evil eye, and the Bible says in certain parts, it's like different parts of the Bible, they'll say like, oh, it's evil, or we interpret it as that's being evil. As a Christian, you only need God, and those things go against God. And what do you think about that? Like, what do you think about? I feel like it comes from a lot of white people who say those things are evil and those things are part of witchcraft. What do you think about that?
Well, if anyone's Roman Catholic, there is a law in the church, in the catechesis, that says that catechism. Wait, hold on. See, I
It's going
lost the
back to
word. I
you.
lost the word. The I can't think of the word. But there's a book of the laws in the church. Um, that you have to learn before you baptize or confirm and so on. But here's the thing: in the Catholic Church, is against it's a sin to do any form of tarot, to do any form of spiritismo, spiritualism, and so on. There was I remember back in the 80s and 90s there was a big issue about Native American Catholics smudging in mass. That was a big issue, and I think it still is. So it's a big problem, and many different churches though are not as strict.
Mm-hmm.
Many are, you
Mm-hmm.
know, they consider it sinful. They consider it demonic. I know our ancestors, the way we had our altars and we had our semis, the Spanish were like, nah, man, this is devil worship, you know, and that's why many of our Behikes were killed because they refused to stop, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and the caciques, and that was in itself a big heartbreak, you know, the trauma.
Yeah.
But many churches do consider it
Evil.
you know, like a sin. Did Jesus actually say this? I can honestly say that Jesus, if you will ask him, Jesus
Mm-hmm.
of Nazareth,
Mm-hmm.
here's a direct quote: "Love one another." You know, whenever there was a tough question towards him, he always went to that.
Mm-hmm.
We have to love one another. So there's no hate in that, right?
And there's a lot of spiritualists out there who think Jesus was into witchcraft because he performed miracles.
Oh yeah.
He had magic. He had powers. That's all a part of being like a brujo or bruja, you know? So what do you think about that?
Oh damn! I didn't expect that question. Well, according to this Christian scriptures, his first miracle was changing wine. I mean, changing water into wine.
Yeah.
Now I know there's a lot of Christians that say that alcohol is it's a sin, right? To drink alcohol, because of its of destructive force of power it contains. But really, is my choice, right? My
Yeah.
choice what I do with it. Um, but here's the thing, Jesus. Wow.
Just you can talk about just like miracles and miracle because you've told me
Yeah.
those are all stories. Like
Yeah.
we have to take it with a grain of salt.
Well, whenever you hear wine in the scriptures, especially the during the Palestinian times, the ancient times,
Yeah.
when you think of wine, um, you know, you have to think about the sanitary conditions at the time. You know, desert-like conditions. There was very few water, and the water they have, much of it was contaminated. You know, because people would bathe in the rivers and stuff, so a lot of it was contaminated. So they would use wine as a main means of drinking
Mm.
because it was sanitary. You
Mm.
know, with the I can't think of the word now when you convert fruits into wine. Fermentation. It was fermented. You see these words? Yeah. So, oh yeah, we gotta get into the text. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, you know, the fermentation, you know, system. So so when I hear that Jesus turned wine, or when I had to study it, turn water into wine, and not just any wine, it was the best wine,
Mm-hmm.
according to the story. You know, top notch. Um, so there's a lot of stories behind that. You know how wine is a representation of that. You know, you're not gonna get sick from the wine. You're gonna get sick of the water.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then it was also that his mother told him that. His mother told him to do the wine to perform that miracle. So also that image of motherhood. You know, that feminine power. It's also added in there, which the Greeks, when they would have read that, they would have been like, yes, Athena, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she was powerful, you know. If an indigenous person reads that text, they will say, "Wow, look at that! The power of a mother
Mothers.
telling her son, please perform this miracle." You
Uh-huh.
know, so there's a lot of metaphor in this story.
Um, yeah, we're all connected. See, that kind of just proves we're all connected with all these different cultures. It's
Definitely.
just different stories, different faces. And something that you told me that actually stuck with me is every single culture from all these different ethnicities, it's just another face of God. And that really stuck with me because it's like we're all connected. Why are we arguing? Why are we having wars over religions and like land and all this stuff. Like we're all connected. We can all live in peace and harmony. Isn't that what we want? Don't we want to live the longest we can? Like
I just
yeah.
something just came to my mind. You said it before,
Mm-hmm.
and now it just slipped. It came and it went.
Oh, that's good. Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
It'll come back to me.
I want you to tell them the story about what you told me at one dinner. You were telling me the story about Jesus was teaching them.
Oh wait, hold on.
Oh, okay.
It just came back to me. I'm sorry.
Go. No, you're good.
I think it was like 10 years ago in Israel. They found an ancient city, right? An ancient town. And what they found was they found like apartments, these dwelling places. And everyone in this dwelling, in these rooms, had what we call itiba kahubawa. That's the pregnant mother with the big breasts. They found all these different, what we call semis, right? And they were like, wait a minute, this is during the high time of the scriptures, after Moses and the time of the prophets, like Jeremiah and all those. But when you read the prophets, right, they're always yelling at the people, there is only one God, and da da da, da da da. I remember I had to study this, and they were always angry. The reason why they were angry because the people were practicing an earth religion, an indigenous religion that dates back hundreds and thousands of years, and that was the Mother Earth, honoring Mother Earth, honoring the divine feminine, and there was the proof, So that's why a lot of these, when you read the scriptures, they always talk, a lot of anger from the prophets, But the thing is that, hey, they were practicing their indigenous ways. So I guess we're looking at a dominant people practicing one way, one spirituality that's indigenous. And then you have a certain few that were like empowered, that were like, no, you can't do that. Oh, it happens now, right? Yeah.
We kind of went over all my questions.
Wait, was one more you were telling me?
It was just the story that you told me once about like the gift of sharing. You told me the story that Jesus told everyone in the town to bring forward what they had to give.
Oh yeah.
Like 1 fish, 2 fish, and then.
Oh yeah. Yeah. One thing that I learned when I went to study the scriptures and biblical studies, that there's two meanings. The one you read, face value, and there's the hidden meaning. You have to get you got to get behind the text. So there's a famous reading a lot of pastors love using, and it gets a good pop from the people. That one day Jesus was preaching out in the wilderness, and people came from far distances to listen to his preaching. And then one of his disciples told him at the end of the day, he said, listen, they're hungry. We have to feed them. And it was kind of like a desperate plea, like, please, Jesus, do something. They come from far away. So Jesus said, and this is what a traditional pastor will say, or preacher. Yeah. And then Jesus told the people to come, and then the disciples gave him some baskets, and he said a prayer, and all of a sudden, miraculously, fish and bread appeared. Fish and bread appeared. And then, but the real thing was what Jesus was, the real miracle that day was he told his disciples, listen, go speak to the people gathered. If somebody has fish, tell them to bring it here. If someone has bread, tell them to bring. Anyone has any figs, tell them to bring it here. Any dates, whatever, bring it here. So that's what the disciples did. And when everything was full, people were able to eat. Because that day, Jesus taught people how to share. And that was a true miracle. And why was it a true miracle? Because if it was true that Jesus, in a snap of the finger, boom, all the baskets were full, then the next day the people will say, hey, what's for breakfast, Jesus? And then Jesus will be, all right, ham and eggs.
Right.
So you got to follow the logic in a lot of these scriptures, stories, metaphors,
Yeah.
very important. Because the eyewitnesses, a lot of these eyewitnesses died, shortly after
The disciples.
after Jesus died. Yeah, but I won't get into that. That's That's for the churches to talk about. But Jesus of Nazareth definitely was a historical figure, I believe. There's a lot of theories that he went to meet up with the Buddhists, and he had a lot of Buddhist teachings influence on him, because there's a good chunk of his life from 13 years old or 12 years old to 33 years old is missing, you know.
Wow.
So now that we're entering Holy Week, you're gonna hear a lot of the Christians Holy Week,
Mm-hmm.
also the Jewish Passover. You're gonna hear a lot of stories. We as an indigenous peoples, we have a lot of stories too that's just as good and just as valid. You know, if you think that Jesus, you as a Taino or as an indigenous person, if you think that Jesus is the way to salvation, in other words, a way to go to heaven, right? Or for us as Guave, then go for it. Go for it. If you feel that's your calling, right? Like my daughter here, I can't tell her, hey, don't go to those damn Christians. I'm sorry. That's not our way as Taino. So if you want to be a Buddhist, right, which is mostly which is a philosophy, if you want to be, whatever religion in the world, it's all right. You're still Taino. You're still ethnically Taino. No one can take that away from you. And I've heard it so many times. Hey, you worshiping the devil god, this and that. But you're still Taino. You shouldn't say that about anyone.
So, not to get deep here, but there are a lot of people out there who go through a lot of things. We all do. We all go through a lot of traumatic experiences growing up, or as adults. Maybe like someone we know got murdered, or we're homeless, or just different traumatic things. The first thing that they do is, why God? Why me? Like, why would you do this to me? Like, what did I do to deserve this? How can we separate as a society blaming God and take accountability for humans? Because God is there, right? But we're here. People here should be taking accountability for the stuff and free will that we have here. Because that's usually, whenever I bring up that I'm a Christian to people or stuff, they kind of automatically like, oh, you're a Jesus freak. Because, like, Jesus can't be real if there's evil in the world. And we've done an episode before about evil and how it's just human nature, it's human act. Like, we have free will, and if you choose to do something that's evil, that's your doing, that's not God's doing. I don't really have a question, I just wanted to bring that up. Because usually that's people's debate on, like, why God doesn't exist. Because evil exists.
Well, it's funny. A lot of vegetarians will tell you, eating animals is not good. It's not a good thing.
I'm vegetarian, by the way.
Oh, there you go. Very good. I'm a little carnivore here, but I've been eating less. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, man. A lot of religions there's called animal sacrifices. In the ancient Hebrew tradition, one of the reasons why they had these temples is they will have these altars, right? These huge altars, and for you to prove to your people, your ethnic people, that you are faithful to this God, mm-hmm. right? That we all believe in. I will have to sacrifice some money to buy an animal, either a goat, or chicken, whatever, and we'll take it to the high priest, and then the high priest will take that animal and slaughter it, and the blood is like what is it? It's a symbol of your loyalty to God, and that's been going on for thousands of years, Mm-hmm. And then Jesus comes along, this Jesus of Nazareth, right? And he's like, wait a minute, hold on. God doesn't want this. What do you mean God doesn't want this? No, God doesn't want any sacrifices. God wants a contrite heart. He wants a pure heart, a good heart. That's what's important.
Oh no.
Wow, look at that. After I said that.
It's the Holy Ghost.
Okay, if you guys can't see me, I had a little issue on my phone.
Oh, look, there we go. We're back.
No, my phone fell in my soup last night. And it's a miracle that it's working right now.
My God.
So we just lost the screen, but it just came back.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys can hear us. Well, my cell phone loved the soup.
I'm surprised it survived.
Let me see. There is ancient
Oh yeah, we should do like a Q&A or something in the end.
artificial findings of. So, so what I was saying about what? Oh yeah. So kind of Jesus changed the narrative. He changed the altar into a dinner table. And the last act that he did was, as a human being, was the Last Supper. And that's what that's all about. And that's what drew the old system out of control. They're like, wait a minute. What you mean we can't kill animals? What you mean we can't prove our love to God? You know, through this ritual that we've been doing for thousands of years. So as a man, Jesus of Nazareth, as a spiritual leader, as a medicine man, you know, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of natives that say that when he was nailed to the cross for his actions, right? That he was, what do you call it? He was piercing for the people. You know, as in sun dances, you have to, many sun dances you got to pierce, and you get scars. You know, so that's what it is. Like he sun danced for the people. You know, he also performed a lot of miracles with dirt. You know, he would take some dirt from the ground and he put it in the blind man's eye. I don't know about you, but that's like a medicine man, medicine person way of doing something. You know, using the earth. You know, using water, like it was mud. He put soil and water made mud, and that's what he used. Wow, he's using a lot of ancient indigenous ways there. Um, you know, and also as a man, as a leader of a group, he was very revolutionary. He used logic, and he used love. You know, one of my favorite stuff that I learned in school, in the seminary, when I started studying about what do you call it, the earthly Jesus, the historical Jesus. The scriptures is very clear that Jesus was a carpenter. Now carpenters back then were also bricklayers. So if you take our money now, back then, Jesus probably made like I would say like $75,000.
Wow.
You know, just a basic carpenter bricklayer. You know, 75,000 or more. You know, and so Jesus had money. You know, if you look at the historical text, you know he had money. Peter was a fisherman, right? He was working when he said, "Come with me." So he probably had money too, Peter. You know, with the fish. So what I'm saying is these were leaders, spiritual leaders, that they didn't ask for others to provide for them. They provided for themselves, and they provided their service to others. And I think that's lost in a lot of the churches. You know, sometimes we ask too much. Give me, give me, give me. But we have to give more because you're a leader. Once you're a leader, you have to give a little more. It's your responsibility. So I believe the historical Jesus teaches that. Teaches anyone this, you know. So he did a lot of great things as a human being, you know, and that's what I want to focus on. He was a true medicine man. He didn't ask, he gave. When they try to kill a woman with, you know, there was a law back then that if
Stones.
like if a woman was caught in adultery, you have to stone her to death. And there was a woman, right, that they caught, and they asked, say, hey, let's trick Jesus. He says he's a rabbi. He has to know the law, and if he says no, then he's not a rabbi. He's not a teacher of the law. So he tells people logic, right? He who is sinless cast the first stone. So that was cool.
That's powerful.
Yeah. You know, it's all logic. It's logic. Forget about religion. It's just logic. You know, if you're saying she's sinful, then all right, who's ever sinless cast the first stone. So he was a true medicine man. He fed people. You know, he gave people food. Like I said, the miracle of the sharing. He also went to the nightclubs. You know
Really? No, I didn't know that.
one of his disciples, when he was Matthew the tax collector, Now Matthew was well hated because he collected your taxes, and taxes were way high back then. I think it was 28%. Hey, just like now. Wait a minute, hold on. So so Matthew invited Jesus to a party. His dinner was dinner party. You know. Now according to history, a lot of these parties are filled with prostitutes, drugs of the time, alcohol, and Jesus went. So what does that tell me? Here's a man, a true medicine man, who's not afraid to go into a situation that's not pleasant for a spiritual leader to go to, right? But guess what? He went. So he probably saw prostitution. He probably saw sex orgies. He probably saw smoking going on or drinking, etc. He saw all of that, but he still went. So that goes to show that he was a true servant to the people. You know, in modern times, you know, you have people doing a lot of stuff that's harming their bodies, harming their lives. But it doesn't mean that the medicine person can't go to those people. You know, you have to go to those people. You have to serve them. You have to help them. So that's what Jesus did, and that's Jesus
True
of
medicine
Nazareth.
man. True medicine
Yeah, he
man.
was a medicine man. So I don't blame anyone for following his teachings, because in his teachings he never said go to church, you know, go to synagogue. Just be a good person, have a good heart. You know, when they ask him, hey, how should we pray? He said, go to your room, close the door, and communicate with your God. You know, so that these are little things that we really can't be hating on. You know, now we can hate on the church. No, you shouldn't. No. Don't hate on even the churches. You know, they have their ways. I have my ways. You have your ways. And you say you're Christian, right? So so my suggestion to everyone, even if you go to an indigenous religious circle, spiritual circle, any church, make sure that the leaders are the servants, that they're serving you. You are not serving them. And that goes to any tradition, okay? Any tradition. It's about service. The leaders, how do you know you're a spiritual leader? Because you can serve and not count the costs. In other words, your hand remains empty before and after. But let's get a handshake there. That's my reward. A true spiritual leader, that's what they want. Okay? They want that friendship so they can continue to serve.
I like that. Dang, that was good.
Hey man. Thank you.
If there's anybody viewing right now, we have 5 viewers right now. If anybody has anything to say, any questions, or anything that you would like to add on to this conversation.
Jarlene said, Doc Wade,
Dogway, hello.
Lakota clip ceremony number 2. Wow, that's interesting.
Do you want to read? LD.
LD
LD wrote a lot.
Martinez says, these writings are interpretations. Hindus and Buddhists are not to be so secular and criticizing. Jesus is also noted in their. Oh yeah, so a lot of these traditions, I've been talking about Jesus going to these different communities, right, like Buddhists and stuff, and learning. You know, I don't know. See. In my studies, a lot of this indigenous knowledge. It seems like at one point of our human history, we had one common teaching, you know, and then as we started spreading out throughout the world, different parts of the world, all 4 directions, you know, different teachings started to evolve. But it was always based on one teaching, right? And that's love, right? Love one another. Yeah. If you have a child, you have to support that child. You have to feed that child. You have to love that child. If you have a wife, if you have a husband, whatever, you know, there's that fellowship, there's that honoring, you know. So, you know, these are principles, right? That have been passed down to all the tribes, all the nations of the world. Unfortunately, now we have so much wars, right? We still got these wars. Any other question? Anybody else want to write something there? We're hitting the 1 hour mark. I don't think we can do another hour.
I know, originally we were going to do this for 2 hours.
Oh, wait, you go.
Where do you get your information? I am trying to learn more. Like book suggestions. Ooh.
Okay, whoa. Well, I read a lot of books when I went to the seminary. On there's a lot of books in Catholicism. The Catholic Church has a lot of authors, books. My suggestion is look up the five Gospels. The five Gospels was written by the Jesus Seminar. Now, any old school Christians looking at this show right now are gonna be like, not them, no, not them. But just Google the Jesus Seminar. Back in the 1980s, um, biblical scholars got together from all the different churches, Catholic, Protestant, you name it. Linguists got together and they dedicated their personal time in looking at the scriptures. Okay, and their first project was, did Jesus really say what was written? Did he really
In the
say it?
Bible.
Right, in the Bible. So they published a book called the Five Gospels, and they just didn't stay on the fourth gospel. So look it up. It's so called the Five Gospels. When that book was published, they all got fired. They all got fired from their churches. Okay. There's also well I could just safely say that when you work in collaboration with no agendas, right? You can come out with some good truths. You can discover a lot of good truths. So look them up. The Jesus Seminar, the Five Gospels, a lot of great commentary in those books. Um, was the Five Gospels, and then came out another one called the Complete Gospels. Um, if you want an overall view or understanding of the scriptures, the thing about the Hebrew scriptures, um, that's something I really don't want to talk about. What they call the Old Testament
Yeah.
and the New Testament. It's really the Hebrew scriptures. I want to respect the Judaism. I had to study Judaism, and I respect it. And there's a lot of misunderstanding over that religion, and there's a lot of infighting too. But those stories are also faith traditions. Faith stories that that's good for them. It was good for their historical um, time period. And I know a lot of people take that they take the Jewish scriptures literally, literal. That's where you get your concept of a lot of the devils and the demons and stuff and so on. They're good stories.
Yeah.
I know the UFO community. They look at the book of Enoch that was banned from churches. Actually, the book of Enoch,
Wow.
and talks about the Watchers. The star people coming down. A lot of good stuff out there, but just be careful. There's always agendas, right? It's always good to learn from by yourself,
Yeah.
and then look at the commentaries. And there's two ways. One is spiritual reflection, what I see, and what do others see. Then you put it together. You know.
Thank
What's
you.
that
Do you
say? Wait,
have also?
what you said? Thank.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you. Do you have information about Taino lifestyle? I love both of your Taino calling song, by the way. Oh, that's so nice.
oh, cool. Oh, thank you so much.
It's supposed to be Taino.
Yeah, Taino, right? Taino. Well, I think it's important that the first thing you look about your Taino lifestyle, go to your family. If your mother and father don't follow it, then look at your grandparents. And if they don't follow it, or maybe they might not be alive or whatever, then listen. Talk about the stories. Ask them about the old stories. Look at the old pictures. If that doesn't work, then you go back to the islands. Go to those mountains. Speak to the people. You know. The lifestyle is still alive and well. The Taino lifestyle. It never died. We call it Puerto Rican, Dominican, Cuban, but I'm telling you, the base is definitely Taino. From how you cook your food, right? How you socialize with others, and so on. Spirituality as well. It's all connected.
There are a lot of Tainos out there who do like to gatekeep though. So subscribe to the Taino Fun House because this man right here shares so much knowledge and you're very public and you share a lot of information that I think a lot of people who are beginners to the Taino lifestyle, you'll learn a lot from this man right here. So subscribe to this account. I'm telling you, you're gonna learn a lot.
Okay, check will be in the mail. Listen, why can't we finally be registered to receive federal benefit? Whoa, okay. To receive federal benefits, it's actually simple. You need land. You need land on federal on U.S. soil, and once you have land, you need a population of a certain indigenous ethnicity, say Taino, right? Then on that land, you have to have some form of government and a mission statement, something that you guys believe in as Taino nation, whatever. Now with that, if you defend that, if you live by that, then you have to petition the government, the U.S. government, to it's the Department of the Interior, and there's a whole application system. Dr. Yare Melendez from Nahuatl, she attempted it. She received a local level recognition. So San Lorenzo recognized her, or Nahuatl, as an indigenous community, and but we couldn't get to the state level, which is the Puerto Rico government, which is also U.S. government, but that's considered state level. It just didn't go beyond that. If it would have gone beyond that, then you go to the feds and you ask for recognition. It's a whole application process.
Sounds like a long process.
Yeah, and they don't take DNA. They have to go by lineage, by paper. They don't go by DNA. Right. But the other alternative is, do we need federal benefits? That's another thing. Do we really need that? You can do everything I just said without the federal benefits. Only thing is you just got to pay your taxes on the land, right?
I feel like that's the big thing, getting the land, having the land.
Yeah, land's a big thing.
That's, yeah.
Whenever I go to a conference of Native Americans, one thing they always ask is like, hey, where's your land, where's your people live? Okay, Confederation got UN declaration, but what happened after? I don't know. Again, I think the only one I really know, Yare Melendez, she got local recognition, and she was going to the federal level, but then it got stuck right there on the state level, or the island level in Puerto Rico. It's not easy. It's not easy. Since the government and the historians say we don't exist, it makes it harder for us. And what we have now is DNA, but they're not taking DNA. So maybe we need to lobby and say, hey, put DNA in there. I think that's the next fight. If people want federal recognition.
That'd be great.
Right?
Yeah.
And as we know, in the 1950s, Operation Bootstrap, a lot of Jibaro people from the mountains, they lost their land because they agreed to come to New York or come to the United States to work, and they lost their land. So that has to be said too. That, hey, we lost our land because of you guys. So give us recognition, please.
Right.
Oh, this is the bat right here. Is my. This is Opia, spirit of the dead, right here. Hey, let me see that board. Let me see that.
Oh no.
Let me see. I got my. It's the Batman. That's right. He is defending Guave. That's right. Spirit world. So whatever spirituality you have, it's all good.
Oh my god.
Just don't hurt anyone. No tenemos tiempo esperar esto. That's right. We don't have any time. Well, we got to start today. Let's go for it. We got to start.
All about unity.
Yeah. Land back. All we need is a couple of families, right? With a common ethnicity, Taino. And boom, there you go. That's all we need. Then we pick up. Then we pick the leadership. Arayeke Yukayek, which is the Yukayeke, and I'm part of, is that we're trying to do that, little by little. So right now, the stage we're in, we're trying to form a community, because you need a community to. Well, you need the land, but you also need the community. It goes hand in hand. you know, and the community has to be united, one cause. Whoop, sorry, one cause, and that is tribal living, tribal ways, right? Anything else? Anybody else have a question there?
Yeah, we're gonna start wrapping this up. But thank you for everyone who's joined. This was amazing. We gotta do more of these lives and talk more about all this because I know there's so many people in my life who have questions, and I feel like as I'm still going down my spiritual path, I'll have more questions to ask you too. So,
No problem.
someone asked, how do we get information about like lifestyle of Taino, but also Christianity and all that stuff? Like, it's just important to talk to your peers, the ones who don't judge you. And yeah, it's important to come together as people and spread love, and knowledge. So, thank you everyone who joined. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel, Taino Fun House, and share this live with everybody you think you'd be interested. Anything you want to say before we close out?
I remember many moons ago, I believe it was 1994, I think. No, 1993. I was at a sweat lodge in Montana, Crow Nation. And there was a couple of priests there and some crows, and that sweat was hot. Man, I was like melting, And that was the first day of my lifestyle as an indigenous person. And it was the church that brought me there. So on one side, one flip coin, I experienced the horror of sexual abuse from a spiritual leader. On the other side, the church brought me, because I didn't buy the tickets or anything, I didn't have those connections. They brought me to a reservation, a Crow Nation, through the church. I woke up and I says, Yo soy Taino, tak toca Taino. This is what I need to do. I need to do ceremonies for the people. So wherever you are in your walk of life, there's going to be destruction and there's going to be construction. So you have to choose whatever religion, philosophy, are you going to be a person that's going to construct, build people up, build your people, or are you going to be destructive and tear people down? See, that's the choices, right? So I'm hoping that you pick the right choice, and that's be constructive. Help your family, help your friends, help your tribe.
And help yourself.
Yeah, help yourself. That's
Self-love.
right. Self-love, right? In that case, pass the water. Pass the soda. No, just kidding. God bless you all. Han han katu. Han han katu. So be it. Oops.